All right, today on the Walk Weekly, we're joined by Courtland W. Hankins III, a Democratic candidate for New York State Assembly out of the 84th District in the Bronx. He's a tenant organizer, housing advocate, and a public services professional who has led campaigns where Bronx tenants push back against abusive landlords and even move towards becoming owners of their own buildings. He currently works as a community coordinator and has framed his run around the idea that government should be an open door, not a brick wall, for residents of neighborhoods like Mott Haven, Hunts Point, and the Lower Concourse. And we also have on the show Mr. Cecil Brooks, and he's a lifelong resident of the Bronx who is running to become the next male district leader. The next male district leader for the 84th Assembly District. His career has brought him across the public and private sector for almost 2 decades as he pushes for investments in underserved communities. During his tenure at the office of Congressman Ritchie Torres, oh, you work with Ritchie?
Yep, yes, sir.
And Cecil's work resulted in $2 million in federal funding for Bronx businesses. It's awesome. Awesome. And he also had two reversals for wrongful deportation orders and dozens of newly registered voters. A child of Garifuna, did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay, and Caribbean immigrants from Honduras. He would be the first Central American elected to higher office in the Bronx, as well as the first black male district leader in his neighborhood. So, with that said, I want to welcome y'all guys. Thank you for joining the Walk Weekly. And I also want to, send a hello and a shout out to the Honorable Vanessa Gibson, the borough president of the Bronx. So let her please tell her I said hello. All right, and I never forget she was on my show in the early days, and I really appreciate that. Okay,
Will do.
Cortland, you described yourself as a tenant organizer, housing advocate, father, and neighbor. For listeners who don't know you yet, who is Courtland Hankins and what shaped your politics growing up in the Bronx?
Um, I'm all those things plus a lot more. You know, we all wear many hats, and being a seasoned uh, professional and a seasoned man, there's I have a lot of experience. I've worn many different hats. Those that were mentioned are what stand out, I think, to me the most with respect to my run in terms of
Mm-hmm.
my background in housing as a tenant organizer, housing advocate, someone who has, helped organize um, buildings and tenants within buildings, including my own. Very, very proud of the fact that it's a pretty big story. You can look it up. Uh, but we were able to organize during the wave of gentrification back in the 2018. We were able to organize as tenants in our building, build a tenant association when the new landlords came in and wanted to, push the rents to what they considered would be market, given the new wave of projected market
Mm-hmm.
value in the area. So we fought it. We fought it long, took us 5 years, but we stayed unified, and we were able to um, push back, buy the building, and become cooperative owners and stakeholders. And also, most importantly, keep our maintenance fees or our rents, if you will, reasonable and affordable, so that our quality of life um, was able to maintain, uh, at a certain level when we could raise our families. So with some level of comfort without being pushed out. So I'm very proud of that. I've also spent I got my start into social work, working with the homeless. So
Okay.
I was the hardest working housing specialist in the Bronx. When you deal with people in precarious situations and unsecure situations where they don't have a permanent place to lay their heads,
Mm-hmm.
that causes all kinds of, that's a nervous system issue. You can never just be relaxed, and you can never be secure. So it was very important that I worked my tail off do my best in making sure we were able to house as many families, individuals that were in a housing insecure or homeless situation. So tough job, but I was very proud of the work that I've done with that. And I moved on to other areas within uh, social services or city and public services, and have gotten a lot of experience in the past 10 years. The previous 20 years, I was in the corporate world working in the banking industry for um, companies like Chase, JP Morgan, Bank of New York, Goldman Sachs. So I have a nice balance. It's a lot dealing with a lot of money. So you had to be on point and you had to be organized and you had to be efficient. So that's what I brought into government, which wasn't quite a match, if you can imagine.
Right. I understand. I understand. Because you
But
said the discipline and the structure,
right, right.
everything laid out and you just follow the book, right?
Correct. And the responsiveness. One of the things
Right.
about government is, sometimes slow to respond. And that was something that wasn't in my professional DNA.
Right.
So I've learned how to bring that to government while at the same time, learning government and how it works. Because sometimes if you move too fast, uh, uh, you pay the price. So you have to kind of gradually um, push the culture to being more efficient and more responsive. But we've done a good job with that. Let me just say this too, Walt, if I can call you Walt. Um,
Yeah, of course.
I that moved me into working with the homeless, and the social work I did there moved me into working for the borough president's office for Vanessa Gibson, our current Bronx borough president, um,
Yeah.
in constituent services, dealing with all kinds of issues Bronx wide. So I have my finger on the pulse there, and then moved into working with borough operations, where I dealt with all the agencies, making sure that they ran efficiently throughout the borough as well, which led me to working for a community board, Bronx Community Board 3, where basically did that the same and more in running, helping to run, assisting to run that district, Bronx District 3, and dealing with everything from A to Z, organizing with the community, municipal services, constituent services, and everything Bronx District 3. So my understanding the apparatus of the Bronx is I have that experience, and that's what I'm looking to carry. One of the things I'm looking to carry with me in Albany. That,
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Uh, you've been quoted as challenging the idea that home ownership is not for us, right?
correct.
All right. What was the moment in your own housing story when you realized tenants in the Bronx could actually become owners?
Well, when we were trying to figure out how we could fight against the rising cost of gentrification here, uh, home ownership or being able to buy a building was something that was just like, well, what are we going to do? Everybody throw $20 in the pot and we're going to buy the building? Like, it just seemed, something that wasn't uh, fathomable, to be honest. You know, uh,
Okay.
but we started educating ourselves and learning that there were different programs. There were opportunities if we were able to show strength and unity as as a tenant association, and as a unified body. And the more we got
Okay.
educated, the more we were able to find the pathway to home ownership through city programs. Some of them have changed, post COVID, different administrations, but s- there's always some pathway to collective home ownership. I'm big on it from a tenant and building standpoint because it puts more power into the hands of a large group of people. And once you become stakeholders
Hmm.
in in your community, there's a consciousness change. Now you have ownership.
Oh,
Now you have a
absolutely.
stake.
Ownership.
You
Ownership.
know,
Always. Yeah.
right? And it makes for a more stable community. And I think we need
Mhm.
more of that. And so there's legislation, state legislation that's on the floor right now. TOPA, which is Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, something that I think is a great idea, where the state even comes in and helps to facilitate those opportunities. So those are the sort of those are the sort of concepts that I think we need to move forward and progress forward so that, and again, last point to that, when you own your own building collectively and cooperatively, you're not in it for profit. So,
Okay.
collectively, you're not looking to profit in the sense off of raising the rent on yourself. So it keeps things affordable. And we have an
Okay.
affordability crisis, especially in housing, that we can't solve because rents never go down.
Well, they can't. Not in this. Don't you think that in this environment, I mean, you got to. I think we should empathize, and I'm with you 100%. But we have to take into consideration the cost that landlords are paying to maintain their buildings, right?
Key point, landlords. But when you become your own collective landlord, right? Again, you have to, if the rising cost of oil or the expense of running a building, collectively you have to absorb that, but you're not in it for profit.
Okay.
So
I want to switch over now to Cecil. Cecil or Cecil? Which do you prefer?
Cecil, unless you're British, French, or Jamaican. It's same name, different accent.
Cecil.
Appreciate
Right.
you
Okay.
asking, though.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. 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 So thank you for joining the Walk Weekly. And I'm gonna apply some of the same questions to you. But what's the distinction between y'all two? Because you're both in the 84th. What's the difference between those two positions, basically, on a hierarchy basis and a duty basis?
But as you know, the assembly member is the state representative for the legislative branch, so they make the laws. They handle especially a lot of the hot button state issues like education, unemployment, environmental regulations, taxes. The district leader is a representative to the party, so I would represent the Democratic Party, and we essentially serve as the liaison for voters and residents when the assembly member is out in Albany making a positive change and passing laws. So we're very much on the ground. We have a relationship as a liaison to the Board of Elections. We help people to get involved with the Democratic Party, to register
Mhm.
to vote, to resolve issues that they might have as citizens looking to make their voice heard. And then they have a platform. District leaders have a platform as prominent elected officials, and they often step into higher roles like city council and state assembly by way of their platform. And another
Okay.
bigger thing about district leaders is that they have a big say in filling certain seats. When someone steps down or resigns from their seat, or when there's an open seat, district leaders, as the representative of the Democratic Party and the electoral system, as the neighborhood's link to the Board of Elections, district leaders a lot of times can help select replacements for the court system, for local judges, or they can help vote on replacements for people who can run and eventually fill in open seats. So it's really much,
Okay.
it's really in the weeds in a sense. It's on the ground listening to concerns and also helping to select the next generation of elected officials.
Okay. Good. Good. I see here that during your tenure at the office of Congressman Ritchie Torres, you did some work that resulted in $2 million in federal funding for Bronx businesses. Could you say a little bit more about that, Cecil?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Looking at new district leaders, people who are getting involved politically or who are making a positive impact on the neighborhood, on the district. And one of those things, casework, because the Congress deals with federal issues, and I always tell people, every elected official either has a constituent services department or it is their job to respond to constituent requests. Everything on the federal side, from immigration, if you have someone, your parent, your spouse, your neighbor, your friend, someone who needs to renew their green card, or someone who's trying to become a citizen of this country and have an active voice in elections, if they have not heard from the immigration office, we as congressional staff members would help to get an answer on their petition. If you have a tax return that has been filed and you need to change your status, we would help connect with the IRS and get an answer for your tax return. If you had something related to the SBA as a small business, and you applied for PPP loans or emergency or economic impact disaster loans, we would help connect you with the SBA, or we would help get an answer directly from the SBA. So in that case, in the latter case, I worked on many cases where Bronx businesses were trying to either get economic assistance, because I worked for Ritchie Torres during the early pandemic years, 2021, 2022. And so we had a lot of businesses that were applying for PPP loans or different services just so they can stay afloat. And also, it wasn't just what we think of as businesses, it was also nonprofits, a lot of organizations that provide essential services, that raise money and provide food services from pantries. They need funding from the federal government, and we had to help them stay afloat. So one of the cases that I had, because I was trying to find an answer, even if it wasn't the answer that a business wanted to hear, this business in particular had issues reaching a staff member, and they were working on scientific research and medicine. They were doing important work that COVID really shone a light on. So just after about 10 different calls, phone calls, chasing around people from New York who were in DC, eventually I got an answer, thankfully. And we were able to get this business that was doing important work, important federal funding to the tune of $2 million, which is around the maximum that you can get for many loans from the SBA. So, it wasn't a glamorous moment. When we talk about the work that elected officials need to do, the work that Courtland, for example, has done on behalf of homeless New Yorkers or housing unstable New Yorkers, it's not always about a press conference. It's not always about winning an election and getting that soundbite. It's about placing hundreds of people into permanent apartments that they can feel at home in, that they can feel stable in, that they can build a life in. It is about making sure that you know what's happening when you are trying to stay in this country and contribute to the United States, and making sure that government is doing its job. So just doing the job of constituent services, that's really the baseline of what we've already been doing, whether from government or from the nonprofit world. And that's what we're hoping to do as well, as representatives of the neighborhood.
Okay. All right. Now I want to switch over, back to Courtland. Okay, Courtland, I got some a few tough questions I want you to address for me.
Okay.
All right. You worked inside government and in banking and outside as an organizer. Why should voters believe you won't just become another insider once you hit Albany?
I think voters can look at my track record. I'm someone who left the corporate world, and within the corporate world, I was always an organizer. As I moved into another phase of my life, I knew purpose-wise, I wanted to be more in line with my purpose, and I said I'm going to work with community. Whatever talents that
Okay.
I may have, my spirit said I'm going to work, with my community, and that's why I made a transition. Monetarily, it definitely was way different, but in terms of
Yeah, definitely.
spiritually, it was I made more spiritual currency, if you will, less physical currency, but more spiritual currency, and that had more value to me. So me working from the bottom up, with the homeless and
Okay.
not-for-profit spaces, doing it independently for some time, coming into the borough president's office and agency at a lower level, and because of my experience, I was able to work my and work ethic. I was able to work myself up the ladder at a decent pace because I did have some seasoning and some experience and maturity just in life and
Right.
professionally. But even within those spaces, I have had some of my toughest battles internally, just in doing things in battling to do things the right way, and standing, ground, because I didn't come into this for the purpose of any sort of celebrity or any sort of political reasons. It was just really just to use my energy and my spirit to work with community and make our communities better. So I've never backed down. I've made sacrifices. So just looking at how I moved, I believe that I just won't become another insider because that's not why I've been doing this, And I'm a man of a certain
Okay.
age. Like, what, I'm going to flip now? Really?
Yeah. Right. Okay.
So I
Okay.
would say you look at the track record, you see the decisions that I've made, you see how I've worked in community from my own building to throughout Bronx wide and even, further. I think that will give you some indication of who I am, what I'm about, and what I'm made of.
Excellent. I want to direct that same question to Cecil. How would you be different than what we've seen, before? What change are you going to bring? How are you going to measure things so that you can come to the people once a month or every quarter and say, okay, we were here at this time, all right, and the trend line is going like this now. These are, do you have a plan or,
Uh, yes, yes, for sure, for sure. So one of the reasons why I decided to run after working in government for a couple years, starting my career in government and
Mhm.
growing up in the South Bronx, is because people like Courtland, people like Gene, who I met on both a professional level as we were collaborating on projects, and also on a personal level, getting to know them as people, their families and their priorities, what keeps them going. And you don't see that level of connection with elected officials, well, many elected officials, including some of those on the state level. Because when you're representing a neighborhood, especially one like our area in Port Morris and Mott Haven and the South Bronx, people aren't necessarily voting for you because they know all of the parts of your legislative agenda. It's not because they memorize every law that you want to pass. It's because more often than not, they know what kind of person you are, or they have a sense for the kind of person you are and
Mhm.
what kind of causes you care about. So for me, I came up, on the border, Generation Z and Millennial, and I came up with a lot of old school folks, in the Democratic Party. My parents,
Okay.
Blue Dog Dems, kind of built their life here in the country, and the Democratic Party public service. It's one of the highest honors because there's something bigger than yourself. Even if the country or some parts of being here don't always lend themselves to friendly experiences, there's something here in the neighborhood in New York and the Bronx that keeps you going. So to answer your question, I'm always trying to meet people where they're at. I like to joke with people. Every single day it's a special day. Today, June 2nd, it's Love Your Dentist Day. It's also
Yeah.
National Roast Chicken Day, and also
Oh,
I
it
didn't.
is.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
man.
sir. Choose
I
your
got to
dinner
tell my wife
carefully.
about
Yep, let her know. Let her know. And
that.
also, it's also National Homeowners Awareness Month. But that being that aside, we need reasons to learn about each other, where we're coming from, and also to believe in something that gives us hope, something that gives us a little bit of joy. And that's just us learning about each other as people. Now, imagine if you don't speak someone's language. Imagine if you have no idea where someone was born or where they grew up, and you're in a building with them, and you're trying to solve the same issues. You have the same trash collection that hasn't been going on for a month. You have the same substance abuse that makes your children uncomfortable. We need to go down to knowing who people are, and Cortland is the only assembly candidate who has not been accused of either improper uses of public funds or receiving funding from a foreign government. He's someone who doesn't have the baggage that many people on the state side have, and also he's trying to bring himself as a neighbor, as a fan of music, as a father to this neighborhood. I'm trying to bring myself as an artist myself, as someone who loves hiking, skateboarding, and bicycling, who went to college outside of the city, went to college in Maine, Colby College, on a scholarship. I
Okay.
was a scholarship kid, and I learned
Okay.
so much about the United States, but I also learned what I was missing. I missed hip hop. I missed soul
Yeah,
food.
I was leading up to that. That's a segue into my one of the questions I have. Name one hip hop song
Mhm.
that best captures the mood of your campaign and this moment in the South Bronx.
Classic. Classic, KRS-One, Nas, Rakim, Kanye West from like '07,
Okay.
2007 area.
So if you
It,
win on campaign night, if you win, you'll be playing something like that, right? Some of those
I'll
joints, I
request it.
And
guess.
I'm going to tell you, Mr. Wall, if we're going to name
Yeah.
one song, right?
Mhm.
I got to say Jada Kiss, "We Gonna Make It." That's what,
Yeah, that's a good one.
that's the
That's definitely a
spirit
good one.
that we're going and energy that we're going to bring to the 84th. We gonna make it. Best believe it.
All right. I hear you. I hear you. All right. I love this. Yeah. Yeah. Really? Oh, okay. Okay. You sound like you're a mentor over there. Gee, you the mentor.
and and I will say, well, I will say there is such a hunger for fresh energy in the government and in also the Democratic Party, even outside of the Democratic Party. So many people who voted for the current Mayor Mamdani, also voted. Yeah. So I just wanted to double down on the point. I know I was a little long-winded, but so many New Yorkers are hungry for fresh energy in local government, and it goes beyond party because so many people who voted for Mayor Mamdani as a Democrat, they also voted for President Trump as a Republican, and we
Really?
are.
That's a
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. They have done studies and overlays of the maps because people just want anything the least common denominator, and the person who hasn't been doing nothing but government. Too many of our elected officials, they've only done government, they've only worked in public office and in politics, and so they will do anything to keep that seat, including intimidating youth and minors who want to get more involved. They will embezzle money for just a few $100s, just so that they can get special treatment. They will go out of their way to take resources from community groups that are doing good work because they didn't. The leader of those groups did not vote for that particular person. When you
Okay.
get people who have a certain level of power and publicity, you also have people who have a higher level of responsibility. I see it with small businesses all the time. I see it with schools and daycare centers. Grudges from politicians that take away good resources in neighborhoods throughout New York. That is the biggest disrespect, and it should be to voters, to residents, to anyone in New York who cares about where they live. And folks like Courtland and I, we have not served. We are first time candidates, and we have not served in government. We have our own families, our own interests. We're very open about who we are as people. You will see us and with people at parades, at happy hours, at daycare centers. You see us at the supermarkets on weekends. Because
See,
there is too much of a division between elected officials who want to keep their seat. They want a monopoly on power.
well, one of the first things that I noticed and is that, when you have career politicians, and there's nothing wrong with being a career politician, but it does come with certain things. It comes with lack of experience in what I like to call real world business. And the interest becomes more, if you're a career-long professional politician, more in doing what you have to do to keep your job, as opposed to what you're in it for is to be a servant to the people. And when you have those individuals who have more of a vast experience, can do other things, have been in other industries, I'm not going to say 100% across the board, but the
Mhm.
mindset's a bit different. This is not all you know. This is not, you're not just a professional campaigner and know how to talk the talk. You made a choice. You have other things that you can do. You're not beholden just to being a politician because that's all you know. And I've noticed that I've seen politicians who are great, in terms of campaigning and front facing, but behind the veil, it's like that's all you got. That's all you got.
Yeah, yeah, no
And
substance.
I've
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
it and I've witnessed it, and that's one of the reasons why I'm like, hey, we need a little bit more substance eh,
Okay.
behind some of our elected representatives, from my experience.
If you lose the race, what does your work in the community look like the next day?
Yeah,
Now, Courtland, same question. If you
Well,
lose,
now
what's next? Because
let me just plug our district leader to be the work that I've seen. I'm proud to be running with him, and the work that I see him have seen him do since I met him some years ago. He's consistent. He's about community. And he's one of the most giving people smart and giving people that I know. So I'm very confident in that he will continue to walk that path regardless of what happens. But we're going to win. Now, as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Walt, to answer that question, I don't want to take it to church, but I'm going to continue to do what God tells me to do. Right. So I'm pretty sure it'll be in alignment with what I'm doing now. So I don't see that changing, but I will tell you, whatever God says and for me to do, that's the path I'm taking.
other question I want to pose to you guys is, there's going to be a surge on New York from ICE, right? I mean, y'all guys are more aware of it than me. I'm out on the island, but I know they're out here also. What do you think? I know you've been working with, especially you, Cecil, with people that are having attempting to immigrate into the country. They're having problems trying to get working papers and things like that. Now ICE is surging into New York City, according to them. What do you think about that?
I mean, I'm speechless. I'm really speechless. I'm speechless. But fishing for words, having seen two presidential administrations in recent memory, from President Biden not having enough people hired and not moving quickly enough, to President Trump moving really fast in all the wrong ways. The worst thing for me when I talk to people about immigration and what's happening now, even if you were born in this country like I was, your rights are being debated right now
Oh
in
yeah, same
Congress
here.
and in Senate.
Birthright citizenship. Yes.
Even if immigration hasn't affected your family for several generations, there are parallels with the ways that ICE agents, masked ICE agents, are bypassing regulations. They're tearing families apart. They're going into churches and houses of worship. They're doing every single thing that even Tea Party Republicans campaigned on. They're doing everything that Republicans would not have done 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. And there's a lot of parallels with policing against citizens, especially Black Americans, by armed state forces that do not respect your rights as a citizen. So every single person should give two hoots, more than two hoots, about how the federal government is conducting itself when they're rounding up Americans, residents and citizens, and putting them in holding facilities for Lord knows how long. It's embarrassing. It's a shame. And if they can do it with people who cannot speak a language or who cannot speak for themselves, or for children, including many American citizens, have been rounded up by ICE, have been deported to a country they don't know. They cannot speak the language, even though by happenstance they happen to be born here. And they cannot speak the country and the place. They cannot speak the language in the country where they are. But because of all those things, if that can happen to people like that, it's not that far off from taking Black Americans, maybe white Americans, rural Americans. It's not that far off from being able to take people who don't agree with the current government in power and holding them for 48 hours. They already do that, in some jail and prison processes. But we need to hold government accountable, and immigration is really one of the starkest ways that we're seeing that right now.
Okay. Courtland?
Um, I agree with what Cecil said and the premise. I think it's just to keep it as simple as possible. We have to be. It's the spirit on how you go about um, enforcing the law. There are laws that need to be taken seriously and enforced. But similar to the parallels that Cecil said in terms of policing in the Black community or the hood, when you have enforcement agencies and officers that are running around like wild cowboys, that there's no accountability that they have in terms of how they administer enforcing the law and doing it unjustly, right? Or unjustly. That's a problem. That's inhumane, and that's a bad spirit in how you're proceeding. So I'm one who says we have to check the spirit of how we're proceeding. We have to
Okay.
be mindful of our laws, and they have to be taken seriously. But we have to actually be mindful of the laws on how we are to enforce them and the policies on how we are to enforce them. And currently, we're breaking all of that.
It's because I'm a little disappointed in Democrats not pushing back with all the things that the Republicans, led by Trump,
Hmm.
and what they're doing. I mean, they're destroying this country. I mean, what are y'all guys? I'm disappointed in Democrats, to be perfectly honest. What do you think going on in Newark right now, in New Jersey?
Can I say this, Mr. Walt? Because I think, from what I see, the Democrats have been pushing back. People have been pushing back. But there's only one way to really push back, and that's when you vote.
There
Because
you
there's
go.
an administration that's in there that has the power because they were voted in to the power. The executive seats, the House seats. So they've got the rings, if you will, the five rings, if you will. So the one way to push back is the people have to vote something else in power that's going to move differently, because there's but so much you can do when you don't have the when you're not positioned.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that.
Yeah, and I guess to add on to that, my biggest disappointment is seeing ego trump effectiveness when people on both in the Senate, to your point, Mr. Walt and Cortland, when people in the Senate and the House don't they're not able to push other voters or other electeds the right way and whip the votes that they need, or to even just to keep people informed. That takes a lot of energy to run around a district, not to mention shuttle yourself between Albany and New York City, or New York and DC. That takes a lot of energy. And some of our elected officials, they have physical limitations, either because medical conditions, or because of advanced age or whatnot, or just other family business commitments that are weighing on them. And that's fine, but they don't want to step aside, or even look at what's beyond at higher office, and not admit to themselves that it might not be the time for them to continue in the same role that they have. So we have to normalize people doing their time in government.
And now we're going to close, guys, because I know you're
Whipping up votes. Let's use the term whip, even though sometimes we don't like to use that term, if you come from a certain
right.
background. But we need to whip up votes. We need to whip up participation and engagement. We have, especially in our primaries, but in general, an abysmal voter turnout rate in the 84th district. How are we going to move the needle forward? How are we going to make the change and empower your Democratic representatives' voice if your engagement and your turnout and your participation is abysmally low?
Well,
You
that's been a
don't.
problem. That's not something new, is it?
It's not.
That's been a problem.
It's
So
been a
what's the
problem, and
solution to that?
especially in certain districts. So that's where
Hmm.
we need to focus on is really, and that's where you have a district leader like who's somebody who's already been engaged on the ground. Excuse me, somebody like me who's already been engaged on the ground and committed to community, and knowing that's where the power lies. The power lies first in the roots of the people, and we have to get
Absolutely.
engagement. They have to be energized. They have to be inspired. They have to be motivated. They have to know that you're amongst them and that you're not just somebody sitting over on a hill in the seat up in Albany. All right. Other than that, that energy is not going to be exchanged. That's number one. It's bigger than a bill. We can have tons of legislation in the South Bronx, but we stay the same and stagnant. Why?
What I'm
And that's what we're going to bring.
Cecil, rather, with a closing statement.
Yes, I mean, thank you very, very much, Mr. Walt. It's been great to hear from you and get to know you, share a bit about myself. Thank you, Brother Gene, as well, putting this together. So Cortland and I, we're running as a slate, because we know each other, but like I said, professionally we've collaborated together, but also personally, as friends, as brothers, as neighbors. And one thing I implore people to think about that one thing that you have an issue with in your neighborhood, in our neighborhood, in the South Bronx, whether
Hmm.
it's a piece of mail that has gone missing, or it's dog poop that you stepped in, or it's looking for a job and not being able to find one for 2 years. I've seen all of those, like firsthand. Everything that we have an issue with, it might not be able to be solved by a politician, but it can be addressed and looked into by government. And we want to be a part of the solution. We want people to know that they can call on us. I'm easily available, findable on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, social media. My phone number is 719-320. Here for you. You will see us in the neighborhood at the watering holes for happy hour with our small businesses. You will see us at the supermarkets getting on groceries for ourselves and our families. You will see us at the parks and block parties, enjoying the beautiful parts of our neighborhood. And I wish, I'm not running because I want to be in government forever, or because I see myself as a politician. No, I have a lot of ideas and a lot of energy. I've been able to channel some of it to projects, but there's
Hmm.
some of it that I can only do if I have the formal support in writing of my neighbors, as a representative. And I want you to I want people, neighbors, to just think of anything that you need, that hasn't been answered by government. We guarantee that we will look into it and get you closer to an answer than you might have had from any other politician in the last few years, because we don't vote for a reason. A lot of us don't vote for a reason. I vote, triple prime voter, but a lot of people have a good reason to not believe in the system. We want to change things up, and donations are a big part of that as well. From $5, matching funds is a huge thing. New York allows people like us, or like Cortland, who doesn't come from a royal background. He hasn't been in government for 2 generations, 3 generations. He hasn't been in politics for 20 years. So every little bit counts, and $5, $10 from someone who lives in our area, Port Morris, Mott Haven, Melrose. I don't like this part of it, but I'm learning about the campaign system as a first time candidate. every little bit counts. And if you live in the South Bronx in our area, that gives a statement to the Board of Elections or the Campaign Finance Board that enough people believe in Courtland or in other folks running for assembly that we can front some of the costs for them and we can give them a helping hand so that we're not just relying on people who have been in politics for 10 years or people who are fighting because politics is the only thing they know. So again, think about the one thing that you haven't had an answer for, and try to see if you can give a little bit, even $5 to $10 makes a huge difference.
Okay. Courtland?
Um, we got a lot of work to do, and it's going to take a lot of energy. There's not going to be a more committed, harder working, dedicated representative than myself or Cecil. Cecil, I can guarantee you that. I've been bringing that energy for my whole life, and specifically for the past decade within these governmental and community spaces. And it's going to be focused on knowing what's number one, and that is engaging our people, because it's the people where the real power comes from. So at the end of the
Okay.
day, that's what we're going to bring: dedication, commitment, hard work, focus, and a passion and a love for the people, and an understanding that that's where the power lies. So that's where we're going to have that's where we're going to have to spend our time and our energy in engaging our people and getting them to participate and get on the same page on the agendas that are going to move the needle forward for the South Bronx after it's been stagnant for so long, normalized in its stagnicity, if that's a word. And that's
Now I
what's
like that.
okay. If you
Okay.
want that, then June 13th up to June 23rd, vote this way: Courtland Hankins and Cecil Brooks. And to Cecil's point, an investment, donations, we have only been receiving money from the people. Our endorsements are from local community leaders and local business
Good.
owners.
Good.
So it's all powered by the people. We're only accountable to the people, and we need the people to continue to invest in the South Bronx, which anchors the Bronx as a whole. And so our progression in the South Bronx moves the Bronx forward, which moves the city forward, which moves the state forward, which moves the country forward, which moves the world forward. And that's how we're approaching it.
Excellent. Excellent. I want to end the show now, and I want to thank y'all guys for joining Cecil K. Brooks Jr. and Courtland Hankins. I wish y'all guys the luck, all the luck in the world.
Thank you so much.
Okay. And thank you for appearing on the Walk Weekly.
Thank you so
And
much.
I'll be following y'all guys. Don't be surprised you see some dollars coming from your way from me.
Let's
At
go.
least $5 minimum. I could do
Yeah,
five. You
yeah,
know what I mean?
550,
Yeah.
550.
Yeah.